Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Well, it's good to be back and talking with everybody again. Recovered for the most part. I think you can still hear it in my voice a bit, but finally getting over this. And we're right back to our coverage of the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And we continue to watch things very closely, specifically in Bakhmut. It does look like the Russians are wrapping up operations in Bakhmut. The city is essentially surrounded. As far as this map, as you're looking at here, does it show that the city is entirely surrounded by Russian forces? No, it does not. Worst case scenario, the only thing preventing the full double envelopment and encirclement of the city is to the west. And we do not believe at this point these two roads, one that kind of ups and shoots around to the northwest, and then the other one kind of to the southwest, are able to supply Ukrainian forces, given the proximity of Russian forces and the ability of Russian forces to shell these roadways at leisure. We also know that Ukrainian forces have blown bridges and are right now, it sounds like, are attempting some sort of orderly withdrawal from Bakhmut. Now, we do believe that Ukrainian forces are still in the center of the city and are still going to offer, quite possibly, some fairly significant resistance to Russian forces. The center of Bakhmut and also the westerly suburbs of Bakhmut are made up of some very large multi-story apartment blocks, old Soviet-style apartment blocks, ranging from 2, 3, all the way to 9 stories tall. And from the information that we have, essentially every building in Bakhmut has been hit by some sort of artillery fire, has been damaged and or rubbleized. And we can assume that there is going to be continued bitter house-to-house, street-to-street fighting taking place. And we know that is going on as we speak. So again, right now, it does appear that the Russians have the advantage. They have cut off the ability of the Ukrainian military to supply its forces in Bakhmut and continue to tighten its grip around Bakhmut while they continue to operate with Spetsnaz and light infantry Wagner formations and house-to-house, street-to-street fighting against Ukrainian forces of a variety of type. Now, that's not the only encirclement that we are seeing in this conflict. Further to the south, although not as extensive, we are starting to see the encirclement of Avdiivka. Now, the Russians have not progressed with the same sort of success that they have had in Bakhmut as they've had in Avdiivka. However, with that being said, you can see it's starting to take shape near Avdiivka, the double envelopment of Avdiivka. And we anticipate that after the engagements around Bakhmut finish up, that we will probably see the movement of Russian forces to engage Ukrainian forces and attempt to take control of Avdiivka. We don't think there is going to be an immediate push towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk at this point. Any Russian move towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk is going to be a very challenging endeavor for Russian forces. Kramatorsk and Sloviansk have been turned into fortress cities. And both of these cities are much bigger than Bakhmut. And in all probability, there is multiple layers of Ukrainian defensive lines protecting both Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. As I've talked about in previous videos, we will probably see a decrease or a lull in fighting as the Russians continue preparations for what I believe is going to be a late summer offensive against Ukrainian forces. Now, at the same time, we continue to see Ukrainian forces talk about a possible offensive in the south, specifically directed towards Melitopol. Now, is that going to pan out? Are we going to see that occur? I don't think so. I don't think right now the Ukrainians are in a position, both equipment and having ready available stocks of munitions and ammunition to conduct a large-scale offensive south. At the same time, we continue to see Russian forces mobilize and prepare for, again, what in all likelihood is going to be some sort of offensive operation in the late summer. Now, again, that may not be in the direction of Donbass, meaning the Russian offensive. That could be further north towards Sumy. It could be near Chernihiv. It could be even directed against Kharkov. We just don't know yet. But given the weather, given the warming conditions, given the mud, in all probability, I think we'll see a lull in fighting. I do believe we will see an uptick in Russian air operations against Ukrainian forces. As I've talked about in previous episodes, I'm very surprised that the Russians have not cut off supply routes running over the Dnieper River, meaning Ukrainians having the ability, the Ukrainian military having the ability to move forces from west of the Dnieper River across into the eastern section of the country on the eastern bank of the Dnieper River. So I anticipate we will continue to see the Russians using air power, cruise missiles to degrade and destroy the Ukrainian military, the Ukrainian army in the field, continue to destroy infrastructure targets inside of Ukraine as well, as it prepares for further offensive operations against Ukrainian forces in the east or possibly another locale. But I do not anticipate that we will see large-scale operations once Bakhmut falls. I think at this point, the Russians will reanalyze what they are facing in the Donbass. I do not foresee any sort of maneuver warfare after Bakhmut falls, especially given the current climate conditions and simply the muddy conditions. But again, going into summer, late summer, things are going to change. And we will be able to then see possible Russian maneuver operations against Ukrainian forces. So I anticipate a rather long, protracted spring going into late spring and then early summer, where probably not much occurs. Other than airstrikes and continued small-scale engagements outside of maybe a move against Avdiivka or other isolated positions of the Ukrainian military that the Russians can take advantage of. It does look like they are setting conditions for an operation against Avdiivka, at least from what I'm seeing here on the ground. It looks like the most next logical place where we could see intensified Russian operations, possibly further operations near Seversk as well. The Russians also appear to be creating a Ukrainian pocket near Seversk in this area where we could see additional operations by the Russian military. But that's what we have for today. It's good to be back. We will have more very, very soon. Thank you for joining us today. More to come. And as always, have a good day.